This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosting an array of events from Civil War reenactments to diesel truck pulls. More information online at virginiarodeo.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamit.doitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome to our guest today, Brett Vassey, Virginia Manufacturers Association. You're the face of the Virginia Manufacturers Association here at the state capitol during the session, during the year. We're glad that you're here. And Rob Hogan, Newport News Shipbuilding. What do you do at Newport News Shipbuilding, Rob?
David, I'm the director for the Structural Fabrication and Assembly Division, which is a major component of our manufacturing operation there at Newport News.
I think you told me before we started the program you've been there 30-some years.
37 years
Yes.
next month.
Well, it's very interesting to talk about manufacturing, with October being Manufacturing Appreciation Month and recognition of manufacturing, and to talk about manufacturing in Virginia. So, Brett, start us off on the conversation.
Well, you know, manufacturing has had a reputation as far as the country's concerned that maybe its future is not as bright as its past was. But the interesting thing is we're actually a growing industry today, and there are about 6,000 manufacturers, pretty equally distributed among the regions around the state. But from our point of view, we see about 220,000 employees in our industry. And the exciting thing is that we finally have an opportunity for growth with foreign direct investment, with technology changing, leveling the playing field, and retirements are creating new opportunities for young people to enter into the industry that hasn't been available in 20 years or 37. But it's exciting for us. It is a new day. It's a renaissance for the industry.
And down at Newport News, what's happening there?
Well, obviously defense is a tough business to be in, but we've got a lot of work on the backlog. Carrier getting ready to christen later this year. The Virginia-class submarine program up and running. We team with Electric Boat up in Connecticut, building those. We're looking at carriers for the future beyond the one we're getting ready to christen. And we are having some growth in our employment and in our business right now.
Brett, from your leading the Virginia Manufacturers Association, what's your mission, what's your vision of what's to take place here in the Commonwealth?
Well, our organization, the VMA, we represent the 6,000 manufacturers of Virginia. We have since 1922. We're proud of that tradition, and we have a very simple mission. Our mission, driven by our members, and Rob is vice chairman, incoming chairman of our organization. It's led by our members, but our goal is really simple. Our mission is to make Virginia the most competitive location in the country, if not the world, to manufacture and headquarter world-class factories. And that is what we get up every day to work on and make sure that we've got the policies and regulations, and of course we've got the business environment that can attract that.
You know, a term that I've bumped into and have had to ask what it means, and I'm sure some of our viewers will be wondering the same when I ask the question. People talk about advanced manufacturing. Spell it out for the viewers. What does that mean?
Well, advanced manufacturing is about the last 11 years, the government has been trying to figure out how the industry is transforming, and many government institutions have coined this word, advanced manufacturing. For the viewers, the easy explanation is this. Every manufacturer is an advanced manufacturer. The difference is there's a continuum from labor intensive to technology intensive. And where that factory is at is in that continuum defines them. And it's a one-way direction. It's from labor intensive to technology intensive. You don't go backward. But that's really where they're at. That's what advanced manufacturing is that continuum from labor intensive to technology intensive. And that's how we compete.
So the contrast would have been in prior era predominantly labor intensive?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think if you take some of the things as an example that we do at the shipyard, ships are no longer made of wood, they're made of steel. And when they went to that, they started joining metals by the way of riveting. And then riveting was replaced by welding. Well, we still weld today, but in addition to people who do the welding, we're advancing our welding technologies using mechanization, automation, and robotics. And so to Brett's point, there's different levels of advancement in the industry. And anytime we can do that, whether it be in my industry and food processing and material movement and logistics, one of the main things that we do is we improve our efficiencies, we create safer environment for our employees. It's typically higher quality products. We have faster times to market and better rates of on-time delivery, and at the end of the day, lower cost for our consumers. So, one of the things I've appreciated about being in the VMA is what I've learned from the diverse group of manufacturers that the VMA represents. I'll steal Brett's quote and all. He says, in Virginia, we make everything from chips to ships.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah. So for VMA promoting advanced manufacturing, what are some of your top priorities then that you work on?
We have developed with our membership a grassroots legislative blueprint, if you will. It's called the Virginia Industrial Innovation Strategy. The Industrial Innovation Strategy has 14 pretty detailed points that we communicate to public officials about what it really takes to foster advanced manufacturing. We really focus on four top ones, though. I mean, the first is the relationship between technology and taxation. And in Virginia, we have to do a better job of encouraging direct investment of capital, because that's how we compete, is investing in our plants and our people and our equipment. And in Virginia, we are a little uncompetitive in that environment because we tax technology and manufacturers. But we have to help make sure that we focus on that piece, and it's a win-win for the community and the Commonwealth and the companies. Related to that is people. We have to make sure that we can close the skills gaps. It's just an absolute. And I know later in the segment we'll talk about that. The third is energy. Companies like the shipyard, very energy intensive as you automate and improve. Energy affordability and reliability, major issue. And then the final thing is, none of it works if you have a regulatory environment that's not competitive. And we spend over $1 billion a year to comply with regulations. So making sure that that is cost competitive is really key.
And so some of those regulations would even be Virginia regulations?
Yes.
I'm sure many of them are federal, but
federal,
some
state,
Virginia,
and local.
Yeah.
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 It becomes very competitive when we compare our states to other states. I mean, there are members of the VMA, their companies have located in Virginia because, of the environment that we have that is friendlier than another state might be. But they're apt to move to another state very quickly next year if the regulations change. So it's got significant impact on the bottom line for every one of the manufacturers in Virginia.
Yeah, we even hear at times concern about ships not being built as many in Newport News, but in some other states. So we Virginians are always glad to hear when they're being built here.
We are too in Newport News. So
I'm sure you
close
are.
proximity to the water certainly helps. It narrows the playing field in some cases.
Now, as you said before, we're going to talk about workforce. We have some other guests, and we'll be talking about that. Anything else about any of your plans or strategies that the two of you would like to speak to before we tee it up for the next group?
Go ahead, I'll let you start.
Well, I think one of the things we're taking a look at is taking a look at all the regulations that are federal and state in air, water, and waste, and making sure that we understand how to get to yes and make sure we're protecting the environment, the health, the safety of our employees in a way that's also competitive. And every few years we go through that process. We're looking forward to Virginia engaging in that again. And in particular, there's one area we're very proud of. We've entered into an era where we have joint relationships with some of the environmental community and looking at wastewater infrastructure. We've spent a tremendous amount of time in improving that so cities have access to capital and improving wastewater infrastructure, and that's something that's really important to us to be competitive, to have wastewater infrastructure available to us, just like roads. Roads have been a recent one, so we're very encouraged about implementing some of these new opportunities in the transportation side as well.
And as the incoming chair, and just like those before me, I want to help Brett spread the message of the VMA across the state. While I'm fortunate to work for the state's largest employer in this type of industry, we have a wide representation of members across the state. Small firms, mid-sized firms, and some of the larger firms in the state. But the real power in it is, at the end of the day, manufacturing is about making and delivering products, doing it as safely and as efficiently as you can for your customer base. And that group of people, with the help and the leadership of the VMA, that's the main focus. And so how can I help other manufacturers understand what they stand to gain by being a member of the VMA?
Thanks, Rob and Brett, and we'll be hearing from some of your colleagues specifically on workforce in just a moment.
Thank you, David.
As we continue to talk about manufacturing in Virginia, we're talking about workforce, and your colleagues have started the process, and we're delighted that you're here. Katherine DeRosear from VMA, Simon Nance with Stihl, and Tanya Cook with Phillip Morris USA. And Katherine, why don't you start us off and let's have a conversation about workforce. What are the issues?
Sure, absolutely. We heard Brett say earlier, when we talk about modern manufacturing and that being along the continuum of labor intensive to technology intensive, that has had a huge impact on the workforce and the skills required to work in manufacturing. And you'll hear from my colleagues today about some of examples specific to their companies as it relates to the products and the processes that they use and the level of skills required. In addition, the impact of the looming retirements. Currently in manufacturing, 15% of the current workforce is eligible for retirement today. So when you think about the skills pipeline necessary to fill those openings, we have a critical issue facing us, because when we take a look at the statewide data, we have more than 65,000 annual openings in manufacturing each year. Currently, we have a projected shortfall of 40,000 skilled and educated workers for those openings. So those are the three primary areas impacting our ability to, as Brett said, core to our mission is our ability to compete not only in Virginia, but globally.
That's a phenomenal number of openings, vacancies, need. What are you all experiencing in your manufacturing?
Just to piggyback on what Katherine talked about, we have about 400 employees that are eligible to walk out the door today, and we've actually had 200 of them to leave this year. So out of that 2,000 plus employees, we have to replace those employees. So we're in the process of hiring. We've hired about 220 plus new hires this year and plan to hire another 100 next year. So how do we fill that gap? So what we've done, we've partnered with the VMA to look at a program called the Manufacturing Technician Certification Program to help us build the skill level of the employees that are already in the program or in the company so far.
In in Virginia Beach, we have the same issue. There are people that are retiring, the new employees that we have to bring in. And at Stihl, we've always had sort of a long-term vision of where we want to go. So we've established apprenticeships, just like a number of manufacturers in Virginia have, and that helps feed our skilled trades pipeline, our skilled employees for a lot of the high-tech manufacturing jobs. But I think more important is we've stepped out in the community and we've gotten involved at the high school and even the middle school level to change the perspective of what manufacturing looks like so kids can get excited about jobs in manufacturing. So you have to tackle it from multiple avenues. The need right now to fill the vacancies, but also what's the need going to be 5 years from now and 10 years from now, because those vacancies are going to keep opening up. So you have to have a long-term strategy.
And I was going to say, I think to build upon that, it's in addition to the lack of sufficient skills available in that pipeline, it's also the other side of our issue is the image of careers in modern manufacturing, the stigma associated with what it is like to work in a factory. If you look at any national research or study that's been conducted of all industries that young people would like to go into and pursue a career, manufacturing always ranks low. So in addition to creating industry-wide technical skills credentials, such as the one that we are working on with Phillip Morris, we've also created our Dream It, Do It Virginia ad campaign, which is to re-image careers in manufacturing with the cornerstone to that effort of being our So What Do You Do brand. It's really a call and response so that you ask the question and we have individuals, real individuals from companies who make a poster around I make you more powerful as an example with Stihl, and it shows the Stihl equipment. And so in addition to those AHA ad campaigns, we've also created a state-of-the-art career information system, which is the first in the country of its kind to include more than 563 credentials that individuals can pursue for employment and career advancement at our companies. And one thing I didn't note in some of my opening data is that of all annual openings in the Commonwealth in manufacturing, more than 55% are in middle skill occupations. And those occupations are ones that require more than a high school diploma, but less than a college degree. So again, it's coupling the skills training, the world-class skills training through different customized training projects, as well as our Manufacturing Skills Institute, coupled with a very aggressive and innovative image rebranding campaign.
So many of the retirees would be ones that at higher skills because they've been working there a long time. Is that a fair assumption? And then you'd be employing new people to come in who might not take their place, or how does it move through the process? You're talking about middle skills and other skills?
Absolutely. So as I said, the 400 that could walk out today, they've been there for 20 plus years,
Sure.
right? So
Right.
they're very skilled on how to run the equipment that we have. So as they leave, you want to bring in a new group of folks, but how do you bring them in to allow them to be ready to work on
Right.
that equipment? So they need
Yeah.
some technical skills, as Katherine was talking about, and also Simon, to be ready for this highly complex equipment that we have.
And the equipment at Phillip Morris, is distinctly different than the equipment at Stihl. So we both have this high technology need, and there may be a lot of similarities, but our workforce, we have to train one way, and Phillip Morris trains in a similar fashion, but on different specific topics. And I think that the tactical approach for the right now, for the filling that gap, has to include really advanced, thought-out programs like the manufacturing the technician and the certification, the industry certifications associated with that. But if you take a step under that and you think what's underlying behind this, you need to change a perspective of current employees that are coming in, because they need to know that the employees that are about to retire have knowledge. They have tacit knowledge that needs to get passed on, and that needs to transfer in some training fashion. But also, there's more advanced technology coming. So these new employees coming in actually need to take a step above the current employees that are going out. So how do they get involved in, whether it's the education system or at a specific factory? What are they going to learn there? So companies have to get involved. We can't just stay inside our own walls, inside our own fence. We have to step out and get involved in where our workforce is coming from. In Hampton Roads, we have thousands of high school graduates every year. So how many of them are interested in coming to work for us, whether it's right after out of high school, whether it's after completing an industry certification or getting a little bit of training, going past an associate's degree but not quite to a bachelor's degree, or after a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, becoming an engineer or doing specialized technical work for us. We have to get them interested in working for us to begin with. So that's the layer even further down. And how are we going to get them interested? Well, that's where things like the Dream It Do It website are helpful. What does this career look like? What do you do? My son asks me that all the time. He says, "Daddy, what did you get to play with the robots today?" And I say, "Well, not today, but sometimes I get to play with them." And that gets him excited. So telling kids what manufacturing today looks like makes a big impact on the career decisions they make later. And we need to build that awareness as employers, but also as facilitators to those employers. That's why we partnered with the VMA, because they're getting the word out there. We're not just taking our employees from Hampton Roads, we're taking our employees from all over the Commonwealth, and sometimes from out of state if necessary, if the skills aren't here, which is why we want to build the skills here. I'm very enthusiastic about this topic. I like the idea of changing the image of manufacturing and then getting kids excited about it. Where we've gotten involved is with one thing we partnered with the VMA and Dream It Do It Virginia on is a summer camp program. And there are, it's a way not only that we can change a perspective of high school and middle school students, but also a way that they can start conversations about their careers with their parents. One of the best calls that we got at the end of a summer camp, and I get calls from parents and from teachers that want to participate or that help out, one of the best calls was, "My kid is talking to me, my son's talking to me about a job in manufacturing. It's great that he wants a career, but what do I tell him?" And that's when I can point him to a resource like the Dream It Do It Virginia website, or highlight that there are lots of employers in the area that need these interested future employees, and they can start going along that skills pipeline, because it's a supply chain. That's what we have right now. We've got a supply chain problem of future employees that come in, and we need to line up that supply chain to fit our needs.
You know, I can imagine that some of our viewers are thinking that, do you have positions, and what can you do if you're transitioning from some other profession? People change professions. I get the message, and our viewers get it about people coming out of high school, but what can you tell our viewers about someone maybe in their 40s or even their 50s, and they're wondering, is there a job that I could do in advanced manufacturing?
Absolutely. Well, and that's why I would encourage viewers to check out Dream It Do It Virginia, all spelled out, .com. It's a career information system that allows people to make that career transition. A specific population that we're working with now is transitioning military. How do they take what they learned in the military and translate those skills to a civilian job? In that career information system, there's no wrong door for career information. An individual can look at specific occupations, training, credentials required for each of those occupations, real-time job postings posted today for those various occupations, and they can chart their integrated education, career, and credential pathway immediately. It's at their fingertips 24/7, and all the resources are there to connect them with opportunities such as the Manufacturing Technology Camp. Our employers can post positions directly to the website, so as you have 200 people exit due to retirement, those jobs are made available immediately on that website. So really, that's kind of the cornerstone of beginning that career transition process. If you're transitioning military, an adult worker who is maybe underemployed or unemployed, or somebody who is just kind of, as you said, in their 40s and wanting to look to do something different, because the average annual salary is $55,000 in the Commonwealth to $60,000. So these are well-paying jobs with great benefits, lots of flexibility when you think about the work environment. So,
yeah, the resource is more than just a job board. You know, it's a planning tool, and I think that's been missing in a lot of initiatives. There are workforce development initiatives all over the place, but how do we encourage this pipeline of workers to plan for what their careers are going to be, not just to try to get a job, but to plan for what that career is. Phillip Morris is planning for the career futures of these skilled workers that are retiring. They're not planning for entry-level people. They're taking entry-level people and turning them into skilled people. Right. And we try to do the same thing. So it's it's a multifaceted thing, and we need more robust resources like that, like the Dream It, Do It site.
Well, we're talking here in October, during the time that it's Manufacturer Appreciation Week, and during this month, we're talking at a time in election time, and everybody running for election, whether it's statewide or running for the House of Delegates, they're talking about jobs, jobs, jobs. So thank you today for helping tell our viewers about advanced manufacturing jobs. Thank you for being on This Week in Richmond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosting an array of events from Civil War reenactments to diesel truck pulls. More information online at virginiarodeo.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.